you are not supposed to doubt. Neither am I. You're not supposed to be fearful. You're not supposed to have things that going on. You're not supposed to not have it all together. You are supposed to be perfect. And I am too. And here's the reality. That's the kind of world that we live in. They expect us to not doubt. They expect us to not have fear. But who would we be if we didn't? We wouldn't be human. Because here's the reality. If you don't have doubt, if you don't have fear, it's either one or two things that is taking place. Either you are not conscious of the real world around you, or you are not playing big enough. People that don't doubt, people that don't have fears, they're not going fast enough. They're not going hard enough. They're not going more expansive. They're not trying to help more people. They're not doing anything. So they don't have a fear because they're comfortable. And when you are comfortable, that is one of the most dangerous places that you can be, because there's billions of people have died, but nobody has ever died from being uncomfortable. And here's the reality. When you don't fear, when you don't doubt, when you don't have a doubt, that means that you are too comfortable. That means that there's nothing around you that's growing, because typically we have doubt when things change. And every single day there's some type of growth, some type of development, something that is taking place around us. So doubting is something that is actually normal. And doubting is something, to a certain degree, that is a phenomenal thing, because sometimes people don't doubt because they don't care. And the fact that you doubt means that there's something on the other side that you actually care about. And the thing that I want you to understand is this: a lot of people are deceived into thinking that like people that are high achievers and they show up confident and everything is going great, from what we can see, they don't have doubt. And that is not true, because here's the reality. The most high achieving people in the world that get the most done, they actually doubt the most. And the proof is in the pudding, because they actually prepare to the degree of their doubt. So when they show up in front of us and everybody else, and they show up in the world, it appears as though everything is flawless and everything is great, because they practiced so much and they rehearsed it so much that it just became second nature because of their doubt. And sometimes when people show up like that, we think that this was their first take. We think that when somebody just shows up in front of the camera, that was their first take. Full transparency. So I'm involved in just different communities, some with video, some with marketing, some with so many different things. And so often in the video groups, I see people who talk about, like, man, how do you do it? It took me 10 times just to get the intro right. Now, how I just messed up there, or you could say I didn't mess up, somebody else would have taken that and redid the whole video, because they doubt. And the reality is this: so often when we see people, we see their best. We don't see the retake and the takeover and we don't see that part, because they don't show us that part. But what I want you to understand is that when you doubt, that is actually normal. Doubting can be a great thing. And sometimes one of the best things that we can do is to doubt our doubts, because doubts show up for a reason. Doubts show us to truly keep us safe from an unconscious perspective. And when we doubt our doubts, sometimes we just allow our doubts to understand that we're good. And however, the thing that's really important to understand as well is that when it comes to doubt, like doubting is something where we only doubt when we're comparing and we're not focused on completing. And here's what I mean by that. People that doubt, they doubt because they're comparing themselves to something or someone that they feel inferior to during that time. Because if there's nothing to compare it to, there's no reason for doubt. Like, doubt has nothing to stand on. So the next time that you doubt, it's very important for you to understand, what are you comparing yourself to? Who are you comparing yourself to? And is it even true? Because sometimes we say that somebody is better than us based on whose opinion. Because the people that like us, the people that love us, the people that show up for us, they're going to like us better than they like somebody else, even if that person is visibly better in somebody else's eyes than we are in the eyes of the people that are for us. And so it's really important to understand that when it comes to who's better or who has more credentials, based on whose opinion. I remember one of the first times that I spoke in public, I was speaking to a group of educators. Now, everybody in this room, well, I won't say everybody, but at least probably about 80% of the people in the room were all PhDs. And I didn't even have a master's degree at the time. I had a, just general degree, a business degree. I didn't have all of these different letters behind my name and things like that. And I remember I had so much insecurity because I'm like, man, who am I to go speak to these people and give them something of value? Like, who am I for them to listen to me? Why would they listen to me? Like, are they gonna like feel like I'm a fraud because I don't have a PhD and all these kind of things that I was thinking about. And I remember I closed my eyes, I meditated, and I started to tell myself over and over again to focus on service above self, service above self. So stop focusing on you and focus on serving above self. And it took me a while to get there before my presentation, but I got there and I was amazed because when I got to the end of a 60-minute presentation, as far as I can see, every single person in the room had taken notes on something that I said. So they got value one way or the other. And the thing that it made me think about is sometimes the credentials that we respect are not the credentials that get the people who have the credentials what they need and where they're trying to go. And sometimes there are certain credentials that we have, but we don't respect them or we don't even view them as credentials because we have them and we don't realize that those credentials are more valuable than anything you can get from a college, anything that you can pay for, or anything that somebody could just sign on a piece of paper, because certain credentials that you have only came from life experience. And you can't buy that. You can't, you know, get like a prerequisite for it. Like you have to go through certain experiences. And the thing that I want you to understand is the importance of never shortchanging yourself, because the fact that you have something inside of you, that is all of the credentials and the requirement and the prerequisite that you need. Like sometimes people feel like they need all of these different qualifications. And the fact that you have a dream or an idea or a vision inside of you, that's all the qualifications that you need. Because I'm a believer and I believe this. I believe that when you get something in your heart, in your mind, or in your spirit, that was assigned to you to bring to the world in a way that only you could bring it to the world. And so often we don't really understand that it doesn't matter what the message is. Sometimes it's all about the messenger. And it's like just because somebody else delivered the same message doesn't make our mission or what's inside of us any less valuable. And sometimes we discount ourselves because we value more people who presented a message maybe before us, and we don't realize that there are some people who would never ever hear from anybody else except you. They need your experience. They need your age. They need your height. Like they need your hair. They need your fingernails. They need your feet. They need your voice. They need you. They won't hear it from anybody else except you. And it's so important to understand that when you have doubts, doubting is normal. Doubting is actually healthy. And I remember the first time that I wrote my book, it took me 10 years to even start writing a book that I thought about writing for years. And here's reality. When I wrote that book, I was this close to quitting. And I tell this story, often to people that have never heard it before. And had it not been for my wife, I would have quit on that book because it was so many different challenges that kept coming, so many different doubts that kept coming, so many fears, so many insecurities because I failed a third grade and this and that and things from my childhood and who's going to listen to me and so many of these different things. And I remember I finally finished the book. I finally published the book. And 6 months later, there was a white lady in Billings, Montana. And you might say, well, what's the relevance of that? I'm telling you in a minute. It was a white lady in Billings, Montana. She contacted me 6 months after I wrote my book and told me that something in my book caused her to recognize that her daughter was about to commit suicide. Now, what's relevant is this. My book was about young men. So from that regard, there should not have been any correlation or any connection whatsoever. In terms of Montana, I never met anybody from Montana in my life, and I'm well traveled, Billings, Montana, that is. And in all accounts, this lady at the time was significantly older than I was. We were from different cultural backgrounds. So Related to the world standard, we should have absolutely nothing in common whatsoever. But the fact that we had something that was very vitally in common, and it was her daughter's life, which I didn't even know was at risk. And I remember the first time that I told that story in public, man, I cried in front of an audience because it caught me off guard. And I started to think about all of the people that I don't even know might be on the other side of a decision that I almost made to quit, that either would have suffered or would have died or was something else that would not have been good. And why do I share that with you? I share that with you because you might have your version of my same story where somebody's on the other side of suffering, somebody's on the other side of pain, somebody's on the other side of making a decision that they don't even want to be here anymore. And they're waiting on you. And I'm here to tell you that what's on the other side of your doubt is so much more important than the doubt you have because somebody else's life depends on it. And maybe it's not to the same degree of this, but maybe somebody else's life depends on it because maybe whatever you have is going to improve the health of somebody's life. It's going to change the trajectory of somebody's family. It's going to cause somebody to believe that marriage is even possible. It's going to cause an entrepreneur to say, you know what, I'm going after that. And that within itself might fund the entire generational wealth gap that is always taking place in his family. They're like, there's so many different things. I don't know what they are. You might not know what they are either. But the fact that you have something inside of you is enough to make it worth it. It's enough to go forward. It's enough to put service above self and not focus so much on you and your doubts, but to focus on that you've been given something. There's an assignment that's been brought to you and nobody else can do your assignment for you but you. And I want to challenge you, encourage you, inspire you to truly put doubt on the side and put service above self because somebody is waiting on the other side of your obedience.